Welcome to Eden Equips, a podcast that shares real stories, practical tools to help parents, carers, educators feel equipped for the journey of raising and supporting neurodivergent children and young people. Whether you are tuning in with a coffee, in the car, you have a rare, precious, quiet moment, I am so glad you're here and thank you so much for listening. Today, I am joined by Tori Stirling, founder of Your Story Therapy, a Newton Abbey-based therapy service supporting adults experiencing anxiety and overwhelm. Tori is a trauma-informed psychotherapist who works relationally, strong focus on attunement, safety, acceptance, and so much of Tori's work involves supporting parents and carers of neurodivergent children, particularly around anxiety, identity, emotional impact that can come with caregiving. Tori led a workshop at our recent conference called Finding Steady Ground. I loved that title you gave us. Supporting emotional wellbeing of adults who care for neurodivergent children and young people, some of which the topics we're going to get into today. Tori, thank you so much for being here. Delighted to have you with us. And I think even just as I'm like describing some of that, I'm sure so many parents and carers, professionals tuning in will go, oh, this is about me today, you know, of like actually looking at ourselves, which sometimes is really uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a huge part of your job, right? Is helping and supporting people kind of journey through that. I think a great place to start, if anyone listening who's kind of first coming across you, what drew you to this work? How did we end up here?
So therapy, I suppose I'm quite late to therapy, and I only trained in my mid-30s. Cool. So before that, I worked in school settings with special educational needs, primary and post-primary. Before that, I was a full-time mum. And so I've got 2 teens and a tween now. And then before that, many moons ago, I actually trained to be a teacher. So lots of that. I suppose I'm grateful for lots of those things because they kind of influence a lot of the work now, and I kind of have a lot of that to carry and inform the work. But I suppose I was always really drawn to relating at depth, and you know, people would have said, you're so deep, and you know, I can do small talk, and I'm happy to for a bit, but I'll always want to
get to the big stuff.
And really, you know, if I'm asking how are you, I genuinely want you to tell me how you're doing, and I'm really curious around that. And also probably life events, and suffered, you know, my own traumatic losses and complexities around that, and therapy was actually really helpful for me too. And not that I needed advice or told what to do or fixed, but I actually really benefited just from somebody offering me the space, I suppose, to just be open about how things were for me, and really just being heard. And so I knew from the other side then too that yes, I am a really good listener by nature, but I also really valued being heard and being given that space. So I decided to become a therapist like mid-30s, and started my own practice when I turned 40.
Amazing.
So yeah,
and it's great work, and I think it's interesting because there's so many maybe assumptions or certain feelings around therapy and therapeutic practices, and people maybe can be still quite uncomfortable with it. You've maybe seen a slight change in that too. It's been talked a lot more openly as well. I'm a big advocate for it, and I think beautifully what you put there is it's actually just giving space for somebody. I know in my own journey through therapy and attending it for quite a period of time, that's what I realized having a space where I was able to talk about things where the person wasn't emotionally attached to me was really freeing, because I'm always so conscious of holding others up and supporting other people, and if I'm talking about stuff in depth, so even I have so many people who love and support me in life, but to talk so freely, I could be incredibly raw and say things without any form of cushioning for another person's emotions. I find that so freeing. And I think even with the kind of path we'll probably go down today, talking about for professionals and parents and carers in this space, that's something that they don't have an awful lot of.
Yeah, so I think something you're saying there is the freedom in knowing you don't need to take responsibility for me in therapy. And for a lot of clients, that's actually really unusual for them. They haven't really had that before. In sessions sometimes actually they will try and take a little bit of responsibility for me, or they'll say something and apologise for this is too much, or I'm sorry to have to tell you this, you've had to listen to me for this hour, or and there can be challenge there with, you don't need to apologise, and this is my role to hear you, and working at that a little bit, as in what that need is about, and why
do we feel that?
Yeah, you're responsible for me, because you're not. And I'm responsible for me, and I can look after my own needs, and that can be a real shift for people, especially mums and parents who that is just their main role of preempting and taking care of everybody and everybody's needs, everybody's emotions all the time, everybody's happiness, and they just carry that a lot.
Yeah. And would it be something that you would really, like, obviously you really care about it and you're very passionate about it, but like recommend to most people, or
therapy? I mean, I think that's the thing too. Like, people think I can't go because things aren't bad enough, and I haven't been through enough, crazy bad stuff, and but a lot of therapy can just be really personal growth and 100%. Just getting to know yourself better, and untangling some stuff and unpicking some things and some behaviours or some things you find tricky, and you just want to find out a little bit more about why. It doesn't have to be massive trauma or huge big life events that you got to speak about.
I think you're right. That's probably a big misconception in terms of, like, it has to be. I even remember in my start of my journey with it, it was very much I went with one thing in mind. In terms of, like, absolutely, I needed to unpick that. That was like really traumatic. There was lots of stuff going on there. However, like, minimal time was spent talking about that. And and you're like, oh no, but like, it was so freeing, and so much of that to understand myself on a greater level, to, like, even with work stuff, like, to be able to go and release it a wee bit, or like unpick, why does my brain feel like I have to do certain things or behave in certain ways. And I think even, like, this is probably jumping to the part I thought we go to after, but even natural way into that was what you talked about in the workshop quite a lot, I think. So you came and kind of said to me of, like, I really care about this, I'd love to share this with parents, and I'm so glad you did, of that, supporting the emotional well-being of adults who care for neurodivergent children and young people. Don't often see that title for a workshop, in terms of it's supporting the young person, and here's all you need to know about the young person. I think what's really interesting for me, and when I'm doing training, is we start talking about the young person, but we also have to talk about the adults in terms of the teachers, the youth workers, like, where are you guys at? How do you feel in those moments? Like, what do you notice going on in your body, or the parents, and what actually is happening? Why do you believe that topic is such an important area for support? So adults, emotional well-being of adults who care for neurodivergent children.
It's because those are the people that I work with. They are the clients who come for therapy, and I'm a parent myself, so I get it. It's a lot, and the focus primarily is on the child. And lots of parents, particularly mums, they just haven't had opportunity to speak about how things are for them, and the weight of it all, and the toll it takes with anybody. And in some ways, that's they're so isolated in that. There's just no space, there's no room, and the expectation is that you just push on and keep going, and it could just all become too much. I've noticed it's always happened, but I think probably I've just got more comfortable with, like, responding to it in my sessions, is like the amount of emotion that comes across, and then an immediate apology that happens, and I just feel like, you don't have to apologize, it's fine,
this is fine, like, I'm really glad you feel safe enough to release emotion here. And I think a lot of it happens because, and I hope this is, in terms of, like, they feel kind of seen for the first time and heard, or given a space to be like, this is hard. And I think so much of parenting, or like teaching or profession, is like putting on the front, keep going, gotta just keep doing, here I am, I'm just going through the motions in those moments. So when someone gives you a wee bit of space, back to that space
100%.
thing, and to be like, how you're actually finding it, then that emotion of I'm actually exhausted and I didn't think this was the life that I was going to have.
No, totally. And I suppose when somebody comes in for therapy, there might be a sense of what might this professional do, or what might they say, because they have been in so many other situations where they were told what to do. Or if you just try this will probably work, and this will probably fix things a bit, and here's another strategy. And actually what they need most of all is just to be heard, and just for someone to offer them some safety in that and compassion. And I am not going to give you a bunch of strategies today, but tell me more about what that's like for you and the impact of that. And there's something really significant just about that space then.
Which we don't do a lot, because we want the answers. We want, how do I do this? How do I fix this? How do I change this? What can I do? And actually, like, that was kind of the theme of the conference, I guess, of like reclaiming trust of yourself. Yeah. Like slowing the pace down a wee bit to be like, I know my child. I know this situation. Yes, there's things I can learn and take on board for sure. Yeah. But if we do that too much, we lose sense of ourselves, I guess, a wee bit.
And I think lots of parents, because they've focused on the child so much, and rightly so, they have lost themselves and lost their identity. Kind of yeah. So a lot of therapy is working at actually connecting back to yourself again. Like, what might that look like? That can feel really tricky for people, because they don't really know. Like, if I am like, what do you need? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've asked myself that. Yeah. Because my focus has been on my child or my young person.
I tell you my kids' needs. Yeah.
Yeah. And almost like permission for that. It's okay for us to think a little bit about what you might need. Yeah. And let's just start really small, even. And sort of a lot more self-compassion, like we talked about that at the conference a bit, because parents find that really difficult to tap into, so much for other people, and really aware of what other people need, and offering it and making space for it, but a lot of resistance in to themselves, and maybe a bit of fear around what that might feel like to be kinder to yourself, and then what might that mean, what changes might that have to mean. And like we did like a little exercise with compassion circles, and getting people to draw those out. And actually, the biggest one is always the circle that represents how much you have for other people. And most people are like, massive circle, and how much then can you receive from other people. So if someone's trying to be kind to you or support you, draw me a circle to represent that. And most people, their circle is smaller. And then the final one is how much you have for yourself, like draw me a circle for that. And like lots of clients have literally done a dot in session, because they find it very hard to connect with, and not very much compassion for their own story or their own needs or how life feels for them.
And how would I begin that? Like, if I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's really resonating, I don't think I've got any compassion for myself. Like, even in terms of, I'm thinking even for like educators or professionals listening, huge hearts, huge care, huge pouring out into others. But then they're like, I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm feeling I need to do more. There's a lot of lack of that self-compassion. Where do I even begin to give myself? What does self-compassion look like? What is it?
Probably starting small is key as well. Like, I was saying at the conference, like, I'm not saying here like a week at Galgorm is self-compassion. Would be lovely, but we're busy, we're parents, we're working, and actually just starting small, like low stakes things even, like where in your day can you carve out that 10 minutes, there will be 10 minutes there. What do you need, or what could you offer yourself there that might be quite restorative? And I mean, it's different for everybody. There are, what I find restorative is not the same as what you do. And sort of really making a lot of time for what brings you joy, or what regulates you, what your nervous system responds to. Not everybody likes a warm bath. Some people want to go out with really loud music in their ears and, pace the pavement for an hour, and they feel a lot better. And it's just making a little bit more room to consider that for yourself.
And I think that's important, the small things, because I think even when I'm having conversations, a big part of what I hear, and I really understand it, like capacity levels and things like that. And obviously it's that whole, like, everyone has a really different like 24 hours in their day and like space in their day to do certain things based on whether I'm a single parent or I have multiple children, I'm a large family, or I'm in a setting where I'm very like financially privileged. Like there's loads of differences, I guess, within that. But I think what I'm hearing is that going into like self-compassion of noticing for me with where I'm at, what can I give myself in this moment, you know, of like those tiny wee carved out moments. And I'm sure you hear it a lot of being like, I don't have time, or I don't have space to do that. And actually it's coming back to the like, well, actually coming back to yourself a wee bit. What do I actually enjoy? What did I'm seeing that whole, you've probably seen it as well on social media, that retrend of like, you know, finding my loves of like what I did as a kid to bring me joy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so, I love that. Like being able to identify again, because we lose it a wee bit. But it is really important to note that it's not like a one size fits all. It's not going to be sitting reading with, we're reading for 10 minutes for everybody, or colouring or things like that. It's going to be really different.
Yeah. And just what you're saying there is really interesting on like the playfulness and kind of how can you engage with that side of yourself just even a little bit. You know, I had a client recently who'd been diagnosed in her 30s and autistic, and you know, she was saying like actually got the Lego back out and really enjoying that and just kind of connecting with a part of herself that she hasn't for so long, and what that means for her,
like authentic joy nearly.
And just being able to set aside how this is perceived, or there's might be some judgment around this. You know, I'm an adult who's enjoying Lego, totally fine. Like I actually really enjoy this, and now I make a little bit of time for this as well.
I like that.
And
I think like it is that connecting. I had a gorgeous thing recently for myself that I noticed, like obviously we like really gorgeous weather recently, and we had got like water pistols for the family, and I grew up in a big family, so like siblings, and I'm incredibly close to all of my siblings, adore them, but like I grew up with that, like play was a huge part of my childhood of like, and it was lovely being, you know, one of five, because if you know, if you fell out with one, there was plenty of others to be friends with in that moment. But like water fights and like painting with water and things like that were just like a gorgeous part of my childhood that I loved. And I found myself running around frantically with these water pistols, like laughing so much with our little one and with my husband and stuff. And you know, when you're in that moment, you're like, oh, this is like, I feel incredibly connected to myself. Like you just have a like wee brief moment that you're like, whoa, I feel so present. But I was reflecting on that, and I was like, why was that so like gorgeous, that moment? And I was like, oh, because that like brought me back also to a place where I felt really safe previously in what my life was. And I think it is that being able to connect into yourself, which is hard. And I think if you don't know it or recognize it, it's really, really difficult. And for parents and carers, especially for neurodivergent individuals, there's a high amount of stress. You know, loads of research has been done with like the amount of PTSD and likening your survival instincts in your brain and the growth of amygdalas and things like that. There's a complexity to this as well. So connecting to myself is nearly a little part, carving out a wee bit of time as well. And I think even being able to hear that, if I'm listening, I'm like, I'd love to like step into that a wee bit further. Like what is my next step with that, even for...
Probably picking up there on what you said around safety, you know, and that's a big thing, you know, massive part of therapy, but for yourself, like learning what it feels safe to do and why it doesn't, and what is the fear there, do you know, even for that client, that it is safe to have a box of Lego in her front room that she plays with. And
nice.
Where lots of clients, things they maybe would have enjoyed in the past, they were told that you can't do that.
You're told
that doesn't work. And even as a kid, you know, that things that weren't acceptable or were you know, judged or not understood very well, that they kind of shut a lot of that down then, and to sort of go back to a little bit of that, but safely, is a wee bit of a journey for people. You know,
it takes time.
It takes time. Just go slowly with it. And, you know, if you're around people that kind of make you feel safe, or an environment where it feels safe, then really kind of dabbling into that a little bit more.
Precious. And I think what I love so much about your work and your language and everything is, you know, not afraid to kind of challenge the traditional approaches in it, and talk about that a little bit in terms of, you do talk about your neuroaffirming practice. You're very open on social media and your website about traditional therapeutic tools can feel invalidating or ineffective. I think that's why people fear it, because you go into a setting, you're like, oh, what the heck is this? You know, and people have had had terrible situations within that.
Like,
and I think, I think if you're like, you're sharing for like autistic clients and stuff and individuals, that you work with, I'm sure that there's been stories there that it's really tricky. So what are those practices? Why is neuroaffirming important, and what does it mean in the therapeutic world?
There's a lot of questions there. So lots of clients have come and experienced therapy before that wasn't helpful.
Yes.
So they can come in quite nervous then, because it's almost like I've failed at therapy before, or I had therapy before and it didn't work for me. Right. And quite often it's not that at all, but it probably was the approach that didn't work. It's nothing to do with them.
Okay.
And
good to hear.
So, CBT, not to criticise approaches, because they're all valid in their own way,
ways,
but there can be elements of CBT that don't work for a neurodivergent client, because it's very much like your thoughts are distorted and your ways of thinking are distorted, and that kind of negative thinking, or you're just catastrophizing here, and let's work at changing that. When actually the client, the way they are responding is totally in line with their own body and what their nervous system is screaming. So that can be really difficult. Really then.
Tori,
this is just something I need to change about how I'm thinking about this, and that kind of compounds then the shame and the idea that they're a failure.
Like oversensitive, highly reactive, all that language of being like, you're being dramatic. But no, my body's actually telling me I'm unsafe here.
Yes, totally. So need to be really careful with that. And it's not that you can't use that, but it's just to be really aware of the client's neurology and how that might fall outside some aspects of CBT. So we need to be just really careful in the way that we're using it, and really listening super closely to what the client's experience is, rather than jumping in with all our techniques. And neurodivergent clients can just find CBT. A lot of it's like score based and kind of qualitative stuff. And it's just like, I don't know how to score my anxiety from 1 to 10. I don't, or how from last week. And they're like, last week, I don't know, like that. Even
what's the scale? Talk to me about what am I feeling? What day of the week is it? Absolutely.
So that kind of, and a lot of it, I suppose, was formed around neuronormative frameworks and ways of thinking, and it just doesn't work. Solution based approaches as well are kind of very. They can work to a certain extent, but they're very quick. And here's what you need to do, and here's what the problem is, and that kind of urgency around that, and the speed. And some clients have maybe been through an agency where you get 6 weeks, and that's not the agency's fault. That's the funding they have, but there is kind of like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end here, and we really need goals. And if you're a client and you want to go slower, or your pace is slower, or you process actually slower, or there's a PDA profile there. So actually that urgency is a demand now that I need to do therapy quick.
Yes.
And it doesn't work. And behavioural approaches, some of them are really kind of subtly, how can I make you more like me? That's what I'm really trying to do.
Sometimes not so subtle when you actually look at it. You're like, wait a minute, like thinking of
it's not the goal.
All the social stuff that was so popularised. Of like,
totally.
Like social classes and all.
Yep.
Like,
conversation has to be ping pong, and that's really what we're trying. So how can we get better at that, or eye contact, or whatever it is, to sort of make you more neurotypical and really moving miles away from a neuroaffirming approach there. But a neuroaffirming approach is inherently relational, so you're always coming back to the client and what their needs are and what their experience is, and very focused on that.
Good.
And I have no interest in making you more like me. How are things for you, and what do you want and need? And actually the healing, I suppose, and the work is the relationship. That is the whole point of it. Rather than what I might do to you. How can I be with you today? So how can I come alongside you? That is probably the core of it.
To be seen, like
and
so much of it.
But I think some therapists saying that becomes tricky, because when when they hear a client's neurodivergent, they can really subtly shift into, okay, well, what am I going to do for you today now that I know you're neurodivergent? So I'm going to take out the ticking clock and I'm going to dim the lights, and they shift into now I do, and they forget that actually it's just about how to be with the person, and
to be rather than what
things
to
aren't
do.
important.
Yes, yeah, I hear that.
To be aware of them, but that does not make you neuroaffirming.
No. Removing a wee ticking clock.
Yes.
It's not a neuroaffirming practice.
No,
Yeah.
and so we can get really kind of in dangerous waters there with that.
Yeah, a wee bit murky.
Just a checklist of things to get done. And now I'm neuroaffirming, but you have missed the whole point.
The whole point. I'm so glad you said that, Tori, because I think I love the language around neuroaffirming. I talk about it so much, but I'm nervous it's going to become our next like awareness language of, I'm this, and you've got a wee certificate up somewhere, but actually what are you doing, how are you being, rather than what do you do. I like that about when you look at neuroaffirming for what it actually is. You're like, it's not here's your toolkit of strategies, it's well, how are we being? What's this going to look like? What are your thoughts actually? What are maybe some subconscious things that have popped up that you nearly need to change in terms of being like, that you're going to go in and I'm going to make you more comfortable with being able to socialize, and actually like, whoa, why do I feel like I need to push that upon this person? And
what do they want?
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting thing, I'm sure, for like professionals to listen to too, and be like, oh, okay, it's more than that.
Yeah.
And actually it's nearly more simple than that, because it's just about being with the person.
Yeah, there's such curiosity in it. I think that's a key part.
Yeah.
Is in, I have really no idea how you experience life and what things feel like for you. And I have my own lens, and that's okay that I do. But to ask the question, how is that for you? And you're talking about anxiety. How do you experience that?
So different for everyone.
I know how I do, but I'm really interested in how that feels for you. And to be inherently curious about the other person,
Love that.
is a massive part of being neuroaffirming, and never to sort of feel certain around, anything really, that what you need or what you might want, or how you can heal, or
it's a dangerous place, and I actually feel like it's a big red flag when I hear people saying, no, I know there is, I know everything there is to know about that, and I'm like, oh, do you really? My gosh,
how could you
like, have you time traveled here or something, like I get nervous when I hear that, because I'm like, there's gonna be so many misconceptions, assumptions, because every child you meet, every adult you meet has had a different story to get to the point that they're at. So I even had to like reflect on how I was interacting for some like autistic adults that, I was just like, who were sharing their story with me, and I'd nearly jump in and I'd be like, that's amazing, and I'd be like, whoa, Rebecca, you've just assumed that that's great because you're trying to be like, I advocate, I'm an ally kind of thing. But I realised that I was nearly saying that their journey had been something that it potentially hadn't been. So changing my approach to being like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Like, what's that experience been like for you?
Tell me more.
So tell me about that. Curious, isn't it? Rather than, oh great, like that's so cool. Like, oh, come on, and it is that like being gentle in your own learning as well. I'd love to kind of bring that in then around like tools and resources with our quick equip game that we kind of play. Is there one tool or resource that you love?
That's so hard.
You're like, many.
There's so many. I guess spoon theory is really helpful. Like, probably a lot of your listeners are aware of spoon theory. Maybe
Funny
not.
You say that.
I don't know.
I keep saying that in training when I'm talking about it. I'm like, you're probably all aware of this. Never heard of it.
Okay.
So go
spoon
for
theory
it.
is so helpful.
Just in case.
I probably am guilty of that as well. And assuming a lot of clients know, and so many are like, never heard of it.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, have you not?
You're like, wait, are you not on my algorithm? Yeah.
So spoon theory is so helpful, especially for neurodivergent adults, because it's just an energy accounting system, really.
I love it.
And just sort of thinking, you have a certain amount of spoons for a day, and they represent your energy. But the interesting thing is how that energy is used then, and what takes it, and that is highly, highly individual. And quite often what takes a neurodivergent adult's energy is so outside of a neurotypical's kind of awareness, as in, how come that costs you so much? And I can do that with my eyes closed and it costs me nothing. So for a neurodivergent adult, just become really aware of their energy and their capacity, because actually their existence is is probably one of fluctuation, and always has been. But kind of normative kind of expectations is consistency is golden.
Yes.
And you must do everything Monday to Friday, same time, and with the same amount of motivation and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And actually their nervous system
like
and
that.
their body just says, nope, I don't have that.
And isn't that important? Because I hear it too much in schools being like, yeah, but they found this fine last week.
Yeah.
They were able
Why
to be in
can't they
class
do
last
this
week.
now? So the knowledge of actually, no, this is okay that I can't today then. And once you kind of
Fluctuating capacity.
become more aware of that, you're much kinder to yourself, and the compassion can kick in.
Yes.
As in,
and less of that failure thought, I wonder.
Yeah. And just to challenge that notion a bit, that consistency is not everything, and it's actually okay that today I need a bit of downtime, or I don't have the capacity, and so what might that mean? And then in therapy, we'd probably be looking at, well, now we need to think about boundaries, because you do tend to give a lot of your time away, and you might need to start looking at saying no a little bit more and carving out time for yourself, or maybe you do need to be in bed by 8:30, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So let's think about how we can make that happen.
Yeah. Let's look at that practically. Love that. Yeah. Spin theory.
Spin theory is brilliant.
Rhea.
Yeah. So helpful.
A mindset that helps you.
A mindset that helps me. It's probably self-compassion. It's like kind of at the core of a lot of my work is just how can we get to a more compassionate place for ourselves and our needs and what we're holding and managing. And, it's like the antidote to shame and guilt. And, lots of us have like an inner critic, and it just is so loud sometimes. And actually compassion can just come alongside. And it's not that we can get rid of that inner critic necessarily, it's there, but can we find another voice, that is a more compassionate voice?
Yeah.
And sometimes that inner critic, it's not actually our own voice, it's someone else. It's a parent, or it's an old teacher, and the message has stuck, and it's so loud sometimes. It's sort of hearing it, but also looking or fighting for another voice, actually, a more compassionate one that I tend to have for other people. Yeah.
It's really helped me a lot, actually, personally. Journey through that a lot. Still is like, goodness me, I could list you everything that I haven't done rather than what I have done. I'm very good at that.
Yeah.
And I realized, I think what, even just having time to do a lot of reflection stuff on this, of how that entered every sphere of my life then. I was like, I hate that. How has that got everywhere? How's the inner critic like hijacked everything of like my sport and all, you're rubbish, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I really struggled. I was like looking at like sports psychology then, because I was like, what's happening here? Like, but even like I'm laughing even like thinking about this, because yesterday I was out for a run. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I was doing intervals and I was like absolutely like out of breath. Like I love sport, like running, movement is my regulator, and I'm like doing this, like really pushing myself, and I'm like, I've got one left, and I'm like out loud, I'm running, being like, you can do this, you're so strong, look at you go. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if anyone hurt me, they're like, what's going on for her there? But like I actually have to push it, because sometimes, especially when I'm really tired, my inner critic's like, you're rubbish, I can't believe you still find this so hard, like why can't you run this fast yet? Like it really spirals very quickly,
and it feels so true. I think
my gosh, it's like
voice can be so familiar. And you're like, oh, that's true, and it's
here it is.
Work to challenge it and look for another,
and it feels uncomfortable challenging it too, because you're like, this feels a bit strange. But I think like even hearing that and like parenting, how lovely, like I encourage parents, like think about the glimmers, like if your inner critic is loud, name 3 things you've done really well today. Because I could always be like, I'll tell you 20 that I failed on, and I think nearly as parenting world you get pushed to that a wee bit too, that improvement. I love 100%. That piece of advice to leave everyone with.
Piece of advice. There's something about the willingness or the awareness that you can participate in your own story. And lots of clients, it's because life has been so difficult and there's been so much challenge that they almost lose their agency. And actually bringing them back a little bit to what needs to change, even small changes. What do you want to learn? Like, where do you need support? What do you want to do? And tapping into that a little bit more, so that they get a sense of this is my own story and the story of my children and young people, and I can participate in this.
That's huge, actually. Yeah.
And just that kind of like what's going to bring you back, what can connect you back into that, because you have lost
story,
that sense, and everything just feels dictated to and told. And no, like we can make some changes here, and you actually, there's a lot of power and agency in that, and you know, the sort of just a hope as well that this is your own story, and you know, there is a societal expectation, there always will be, but we get to challenge that,
right?
And we get to say that doesn't work for me, and this actually suits us a lot better. Cool. And this is what Tori. It looks like for us to participate in our own story.
So good.
I
love that. Really good advice, Tori. Thank you so much. I think just even for closing that, I hope people find it really, I know they will have, like, probably a wee bit challenging at times too, of listening and hearing and encouraging within that on their own journey. If I'd like to step into that, how do I do it? How do I step into like therapeutic world in terms of, I'm listening to this maybe as a parent, Karen, I was like, I could do with this. Can I contact you directly? How does that work?
Like website or Instagram or reach out, and you know, therapy in person or online or whatever works for you.
Nice, love that.
Yeah, absolutely, that'd be
and
great.
We'll put some of the details in the notes as well, just so people can access that easily. And like, thank you for the work you're doing. It's so important, and thank you for coming and sharing this today as well.
Lovely,
and thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.